Self-awareness is not self-criticism. It's not about judging yourself, analysing everything you do, or finding more reasons to believe that something is wrong with you. Self-awareness is the moment that you begin to see yourself clearly. You start noticing the patterns, reactions, beliefs, and choices that have been running quietly in the background in your life. And once you can see those, you are no longer completely ruled by them. And that is why self-awareness is such an important part of the authentic life blueprint, because you cannot change what you cannot see. But once you see it, you can begin to choose differently.
If you're actively seeking ways to build your mental toughness, navigate life transitions with grace, or simply find inspiration to keep moving forward, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. Welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking. My name is Yvette and I'm here with my co-host Cat, and we're talking all about self-awareness as the first real doorway in understanding you. So let's start with naming some of those autopilot patterns that tend to come up in all of our lives, and things that usually happen without us even realizing. Kat, what are some of yours? I mean, I know I've got some beautiful autopilot patterns.
Oh, look, I've got some shockers, actually. When I get fired up, I react, and without thinking, I can get, if I get cranky, if something irritates me, I can be blah, 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 shoot from the hip without thinking. And that's, even when I think to myself, God, I've really got to be more measured next time, things can get my goat. And not so much these days, but before I did this kind of training, if something really irritated me, I would feel it in my body and I would bite back. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I have a tendency of getting emotionally triggered on certain topics or, say, certain situations. And because I have a high tolerance level for things as well, I will tend to put up, and then go, "Blah," and not necessarily at the individual, but within myself, I'll just get really fucking
really
pissed off.
cranky.
Yeah. And then I have to catch myself and go, "Oi, okay, come on. What are you doing here? This is a pattern," realizing what's actually happening. Something else I used to do, and I don't do it anymore, but was staying busy. And especially when I was working for myself, I kind of looked at it and went, I've got to be really pushing really hard to make things happen. I've got to be busy all the time. If I'm not doing things, it means I'm being lazy, And then I realized after burning out several times and going, actually, that's really, really unhealthy. And it's not a very good pattern. And
No one can sustain that. No one can sustain that.
It's about actually finding that harmony in your energy. And some days it's that whole thing. Some days you may put a lot of effort in and other days you don't need to put as much in.
Yeah.
And it's just finding that
ebb and flow
between it. Yeah, the ebb and flow, exactly right. But I used to find that a lot, that I would push myself because I believed that I had to in order to actually succeed. And
I think that another thing that I was on autopilot with, I used to think that I had good boundaries, because when people were doing things that were badly behaved, then I would come back and go, blah, 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 blah. But I realized when I did this and I stopped and reflected that the reason that people were behaving badly and that I was snapping was because I wasn't putting in good boundaries in the first instance. So I was allowing bad behavior rather than saying, no, I can't do that, because I felt guilty or obligated or fearful, or I was needing approval. So I allowed bad behavior. And then when that bad behavior, similarly to what you were saying, got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore, or I felt really, I suppose, used or treated badly, then I would feel very angry and it would trigger my deep-seated sense of justice. So this has taught me with that self-awareness, and that was a shock because I'm a pretty confident and assertive person, but it was a bit of a shock to go through that and go, oh, actually, so now I'm very clear, and I'm still doing baby steps, but now my boundaries are clear, but kind, but early,
Yeah, picking it up very early and putting it in place early. Yeah, absolutely. I know another one for me, and it's still something that I catch myself with before it actually plays out, is making decisions when you're actually fearful or anxious. We've spoken about this before in the past of how you shouldn't make decisions when you're in that state of mind. But when you don't have that level of self-awareness around it, you make decisions from that place, and usually those decisions aren't the best decisions for your life because you're
No.
doing it out of fear or you're doing it out of guilt. You're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And so you're not reflecting back on self and going, what is the reason for me actually needing to go down this pathway, or what is the best direction that I need to take? You're going, oh my God, this is happening in my environment. I have to make a decision in order to change it because you're trying to
Yes.
control it. And
Yeah.
that was a pattern that I used to have as well. Because I remember in my early 20s, I was contracting, doing IT contracting for a while.
Mhm.
And the contracting market was really, really good. And then it goes through cycles where it'd be
Yeah.
really good and it'd be really bad. And there was a period where I was out of work for, I think, about 3 months. And oh my God, I was freaking out. Like,
In a
I mean,
panic.
totally freaking out. And I was
Yeah.
constantly ringing up the recruitment agencies going, you have to find me work, in a panic. And then that means when I was going for interviews, I was coming across as being totally desperate as well
Totally desperate
because
and
I was
stressed.
going, I need
Yeah.
this job. I need this job. You have to, I'm not saying to them, you have to give me the job, but it would come across in my energy. And so making decisions in that place or even having conversations from that place is just not a good place at all. So
No.
yeah, I think one of the things with autopilot patterns is there's things that happen without you, they're reactions. You're not actually really aware of the patterns playing out.
Yeah.
You're just automatically falling into certain patterns of behavior.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help. Usually autopilot patterns are quite detrimental.
Yeah.
And they're a protective mode as well. Like you do them as a form of protection and you think you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
but you're not. You're actually really I personally believe you're fucking yourself over. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
No, you're right.
yeah.
You're right. I know someone that recently was fired from their job without any explanation at all, completely unlawful dismissal. And the organisation said to them, okay, well, you need to sign this deed of release. We'll give you an additional month's pay if you sign this deed of release because what they've done is illegal. And every other person that they've done this to has signed this deed of release and just gone, oh, okay. But I'm pretty sure the majority of them would have sat back if they'd have spoken to other people and gone, actually, these people did the wrong thing and I probably shouldn't have signed that deed of release, but I felt
Yeah.
really pressured to do so. Now, the person I'm talking about said to them, they took a step back and said, no, actually, no, I'm not comfortable doing that until I've had a word, until I've considered my position. And they went, all right, we'll give you half an hour. And he went, oh, no, I would
The
like to speak
pressure.
with
Yeah.
I'd like to take
Yeah.
some legal advice first. So then they gave him another time frame and he said, okay, I'll take that time frame. And then he went away and had a discussion and then missed their time frame. And they said the offer's no longer on the table. And he said, that's okay, because I'm going to make you a new offer that you're not going to like, but you're going to have to consider it. And that shows, I suppose, there's a real luxury in stopping and saying, well, actually, it's not a luxury. It should be something that we allow human beings to go, actually, I'm not aware of all my options at the moment, and I don't want to make a decision, and I think I'm going to go off and get some advice, whatever the situation is. And if you are around people who are pressuring you or you're feeling like you've got to cave in and give in to keep the peace, then that's a question for yourself. Why
Mm.
do I feel that way? Am I pleasing them? Is this going to be something that's going to, put me at a disadvantage? And that's a really massive part of self-awareness. People who can take a beat and go, no, I need time to consider my response. They're people they're in charge of the room.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I would look at that too and say, if you have made a decision under pressure, or as I said, in any of those situations that we talk about, fear, guilt, or people pleasing, or things like that, and say 3 months or 6 months later, you look back on it in hindsight and go, I probably should have gone down this path.
Yeah.
That shows to you that you were actually making the decision out of reaction and not through awareness. And
Yes.
and I think if you are able to go, like, stop in the moment and go, if I was to go down that path, how would I review this in 3 months or 6 months' time?
Yeah. 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 Or even say, look, I might need 24 hours to consider this. Even
Yeah.
in relationships, I've seen this a lot in domestic violence. Do this now or you'll lose me forever. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not willing to make a decision right now and I need to go off and assess my position. So if you're not willing to give me the space I need to do that, then I'm going to lose you forever
Yeah.
because that's unhealthy.
Yeah. Well, you call it out. You call it out on them. And it really, and that's the thing about the autopilot. It's actually, and so, sometimes it can be really subtle. It's not necessarily, these patterns aren't necessarily really in your face. They can
No.
be really, really subtle. And especially when you're got a lot of stress happening in your life, like with a particular environment,
Yeah.
that you may be in a particular environment, or there could be a particular situation that's going on that's causing stress in your life, or it could be happening across the entirety of your life.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly making decisions, as I said, from a place of fear and things like that. But you don't
Mm.
realize it because you're in it all the time. And
Yeah.
that's why it can be so subtle. It can feel really quite subtle. And a lot of the times it can look like you're actually being functional, that
Yeah.
you're functioning
Yeah.
really well and that you believe you're making really good decisions, but in actual
Yep.
fact, you're finding yourself in the same situation over and over and over
The pattern
again.
repeats
Yeah,
because
the
you're
pattern
still making the
repeats.
same decisions. And oftentimes people I've seen who are unhappy, who say, God, I'm really unhappy in my workplace or whatever it is that I'm doing. And I'm like, well, why do you keep making that decision? And they're like, well, what else can I do? How can I make any decision any differently? Because they're stuck in that place of survival and
Yeah,
they genuinely believe that they have to keep all of the, I suppose, all the pieces moving in their life. They've just got to keep doing this same stuff. They're miserable. That's autopilot, isn't it? Miserable, not happy, but a belief that you can't make any changes to what you're doing.
exactly. And it's
Mm.
also a very clear sign that you are disconnected from self as well.
Yes,
And
yes.
that there's, perhaps there is a lack of self awareness in that particular area, because you may have self awareness in other areas of your life and lacking it in a particular area because you're always under
Yeah.
stress.
We've always got blind
Or you could
spots.
just be lacking self awareness, full stop. It depends on the individual. But I usually find that you may be self aware in the workplace, but not
Yeah,
self aware in a relationship, for instance. So
around.
there's, yeah, exactly. So it varies depending on the individual. So it's really about finding that self awareness
Mm,
in all the different areas of your life, not just in one or two areas. And
mm,
then it goes back to, well, how do you define self awareness in your
yep,
own language? What does that look like? And for me, I tend to go inward a lot on how I'm feeling,
yep,
and also if I am becoming excessive with my thought patterns. Like if I'm thinking over something too much, I'm going,
yep.
oh, okay, I'm overthinking here, and that's not a
Why
great
am I
thing to
doing
do.
that? Yeah,
Exactly. And so the first step to me is becoming aware of the pattern. And you do that through observation. We've
yeah,
spoke about that previously, where it's about stepping back and observing. And that observing is you becoming self-aware of your own patterns and
yep,
your own thinking, what you're choosing in your life.
yep,
And especially if you're going, well, I don't want to have this happen over and over again. And I see it as a cycle that keeps happening. So then
yep.
you step back and you start going, okay, so if I was to look at that cycle throughout my life,
Mm,
what was the pattern that was repeating? And how was I reacting in that pattern? And what were the decisions that I constantly was making to bring this back into
yep.
fruition? So it's revisiting it from that. It's because it's a lot easier to look at things in hindsight than it is to look at things in the
Than
moment.
when you're
Yeah.
actually in it. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So self-awareness can start by looking at old patterns, like what you've done previously in your
Mm.
past, and then becoming aware of it happening in the current situation or
Yeah,
your current
absolutely.
path.
And the other good thing that you can do if you look at things in the past, because we all have blind spots, we all do some things well and some things not so well, as you said, is to look at, I find it particularly helpful to look back on things and go, wow, I felt really stuck in that situation, but now I've mastered that. How did I do that? What was the process that I went through? And I always find the process that I went through is I identified that there was a problem, that there was something wrong. Then I looked at my own behaviors around that. And what it boils down to is it's just a matter of making different decisions
Yeah,
that are going to go towards what you want, and then training yourself to continue making those decisions so that you can achieve your goals, which sometimes takes a
yeah,
while.
exactly.
Mm.
And I know for me, because as I mentioned, one of those patterns for me was making a decision when I was in fear and reacting and things like that, was to step back and go, okay, I know you're scared. I know that you feel really uncomfortable in this current situation,
Yeah.
but do not make any rash decisions unless it's a survival thing, unless it's
Yeah,
absolute
of course.
survival.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
not
If
make
there's a
any
gun
rash
to your head,
decisions.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Take a step
Otherwise,
back and kind of go, all right, I'm going to get myself again grounded and centered. And
mm,
that may take a little bit of effort, especially when you're in a place of anxiousness and fear. But do some deep breathing. Just go and watch something that makes you laugh, pet a cat or a dog, whatever it is, get a cuddle from your partner. Do
yeah,
the things that ground you. Go out in nature if that's something that you love to
yeah.
do and ground
Go for a
yourself.
brisk walk, go to the
Yeah.
gym, whatever.
And once you've grounded, then you go, okay, now I'm calm. What
Mm.
would be the best course of action to take now that I'm calm?
And
Not
sometimes the best
in the
course of
fear in the
action
moment.
is
Is
just the
no
best
action.
is no action, or that it's the best of 2 bad courses. You don't
Yes.
have much of a
Mhm.
choice, but I recommend trying to step back. Again, it comes back to responding instead of reacting, and look at it, play
Yeah.
it like a chess game. What is my
Yeah.
long-term strategy here? Do I need to sacrifice a few things to get what I want down the track? Because that again is the and how am I gonna do that? How am I gonna sustain myself through that
Yeah.
process? Mm.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is asking yourself what you're tolerating.
Well, what
What
matters?
are
Where are
you?
your
Yeah.
values? That's why
Yeah.
we explore values later on in the workbook, but
Exactly.
this is the opening. I mean, I think I said to you before, this is the second module, and this is the most important thing to help bring about change. If you want
Well,
change, you've got to
yeah.
identify what's going on.
Well, it's also because self-awareness is the key.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is the absolute key to understanding who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't have that self-awareness and you don't do that self-reflection and that inward reflection, you've got no idea about your patterns because you are just reacting. So
Yeah.
if you want to make change in your life, we talk about self-relationship and that, but it starts number one step, most important step, self-awareness.
Yeah.
And then everything else, because how will you know your values? How will you know your beliefs? How will
Mm,
you know your boundaries
yeah.
if you don't have a level of self-awareness?
You need to be in touch with that, because you need to be in touch with what makes you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and those feelings of discomfort, you need to examine them. Am I
Yeah.
feeling this discomfort because I'm engaging in something new that I need to do to improve my life, like learning something that's tricky, or trying to master, I don't know, going to the gym, or pushing myself, or saying no to something that I want. That's a level of discomfort that I would engage in and embrace because it's something I need to do to achieve my goal. Or am I in a position of discomfort because I'm feeling really uncomfortable with the way I'm getting treated by this person, or this
Yeah.
person is crossing my boundary and I'm feeling really uncomfortable and I don't want to engage in what they're asking me to do because it's just
Mm.
against what I like and what I believe in. So that's another part of self-discernment that's really important, because I think with sometimes we're told, like, you've just got to suck it up with a stiff upper lip and just carry on. And to
Yeah.
some extent, perhaps, yes, some days I do have to suck it up when I go to the gym and I don't feel like doing it, and carry on and get that done. But after a while, the rewards of that start coming through. If you're sucking it up with a stiff upper lip, it's not your goal, you're just doing it for someone else, or you're doing it because you feel like you absolutely need to people please or fit in, then that is your self awareness yelling at you, going, you really shouldn't be doing this. This is not for you.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to when we talk about some of the questions of asking yourself is well, what am I avoiding here? Or what am I
Yeah.
choosing? It's really asking yourself certain powerful questions in order to get that level of understanding of you. Because self-reflection and self-awareness is I think some people don't like to look at themselves and really understand who they are because they're scared of what they're going to find.
Yeah.
And but then you go, but if you don't do that, you're always going to be tolerating something that you don't want to be doing. You're
And
always
your life
going to be,
won't
yeah,
direct, you won't be able
not
to put your
not
life in
putting
the
the
direction you
boundary.
want. Yeah.
Exactly. And going to be seeing the repeating patterns happening over again. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, you'll be following someone else's life as opposed to yours because you're pleasing somebody else.
Yep.
And that's why self-awareness, I think, it's really, really, it is the key. And it's not about judging yourself. Self-awareness
No.
by any means, it's actually not a judgmental voice. It's being the observer. It's observing yourself and observing the patterns and asking yourself the question of, why am I doing that?
Mm.
Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
What, as I said, what am I avoiding here? Or why am I choosing that even though I know it's the wrong thing for me, but I keep doing it? Why? What's going on
Exactly.
here?
And not in
You
a
know,
not in a
mm,
like we say, there's a fine line between self-awareness and self-criticism. So self-awareness says something happened in me. Why? I need to understand that.
yeah,
And self-criticism comes from that place of shame. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this?
yeah,
Totally unproductive, not what you want to do. You want to go with the self-awareness going, okay, I'm here to understand myself. And I think a lot of people confuse turning inward and self-awareness with self-criticism.
self-criticism. Yeah,
And I think that's
absolutely.
what puts
Yeah.
people off because they don't want it. They feel like it's just going to have, I've had people say, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to sit there contemplating my belly button. And they feel like it's just a big self-criticism fest. It's not. If you're criticizing yourself, it's a difficult spot to sit, which is why the workbook is good because it teaches you exactly how to do it. But it keeps you on track to go, okay, I'm not going to shame myself. I'm not here to judge
Mm.
myself. I'm here to take an honest look.
Yeah, with
Like
compassion.
a doctor. I'm going to make an assessment of
Mm,
my mental health, my emotional
yeah,
health. Okay,
yeah,
I'm lacking in some things, but all of this is fixable. I just need to learn the skills on how I'm going to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And again, as I said, it comes from that place of compassion. You're not being critical, you're being
Yeah.
compassionate about
Again, is
what's
not
going
something
on.
that's very popular, is it? You know?
No, self-compassion. No. So it is the practice of being present. Like as I said, being that observer, being really present and really understanding what is actually happening within you.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. And then through that, when you start getting that self-awareness and not, as we said, not the self-criticism, when you start doing that self-awareness, you then are in a position that you can make the change that
Yeah.
you need to make. Like you said, you can look at it and go, okay, well, what do I need to do differently here? What skills do I need to develop new skills? Do I
Yeah.
need to go educate myself on something? Do I need to become a better communicator? What is it that I need to do to improve in this particular area? And that's the beauty of self-awareness is it
Mm.
gives you the, I suppose, the opportunity and understanding of what you need to do next.
And it's very empowering. I think I know a lot of people get very fearful of doing this because the first step sometimes is like you've said in the past, peeling back that onion and going, okay, what is this? I'm going to start identifying, some of my old patterns and the things that have been running quietly in the background that are creating my life. So it's uncomfortable to look at some of these
Mm.
things. It might be childhood conditioning. You're making decisions from an understanding that came from the blueprint of your childhood and the family dynamics, fear of rejection, a need to be liked, past relationships, having been told that you maybe are difficult or you're too much and now you've got to suppress and fit in. And those are really difficult things to look at because that's the basis of your whole life a lot of the time because it makes you reevaluate your
Yeah,
relationships with people and your career trajectory and what you're doing. And that is a big deal. The problem comes when people refuse to look because the thing about, I suppose, energy and the universe and personal growth is if you stick your head in the sand like an ostrich, then the universe is going to come along. And if you're going, I don't want to look at that, actually, eventually it's going to make you look at it. So you may as
yeah,
well do it in a way that
yeah.
works for you rather than awful lessons that get thrown your way. Because look, you know what? I can talk about that. I've got lived experience.
And if we look at that as well, because that is exactly what happens with self-criticism. It keeps you stuck in the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what self-criticism, I can't even say it, self-criticism does.
Yeah.
It keeps you stuck right there then. And you don't want to look at yourself because you know that you're just going to give yourself a hard time.
Yeah.
And you're going to be saying to yourself, oh, but that means everything I've done in my life has been wrong and
Yeah.
I'm wrong and
I
this
am
is
the
bad.
problem.
And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And my life is just fucked and I don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
That's self-criticism, right?
And it's disempowering.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
totally disempowering.
Mm.
Self-awareness is about understanding the pattern. So therefore, as we said, you can then make a change.
Yeah.
It's not looking at yourself going, oh my God, I did really bad there and giving yourself a hard time.
Mm,
It's
mm.
going, ah, if that situation was to happen again, what would I do differently next time?
It's almost a diagnostic tool, isn't it? It's
Mm,
almost being willing to, like, take an honest look at what's going on. That's really what it
yeah,
is. It's diagnosing. It's not, and even that sounds sort of pathologizing. It's not even that. It's just taking a good honest look without going, "Oh God, I'm so useless." I mean, you may feel a bit of a cringe. I know I have, and gone, "Oh God, I actually really need to develop my skills in that area." And I'm
yeah,
going to struggle with that because that's something that I'm not naturally inclined towards. You'll find that there's strengths and weaknesses that you will uncover. But that good honest look when you say, "Okay, I can make changes." And it is a process and it's not a one and done thing.
yeah.
That's
And
the
I'm
other
going to
part.
add to that because I recall one of the patterns I used to do, and I think I may have spoken about this previously, but if not, was regardless of what the conversation is about, especially in a workplace, I'd get very defensive. I'd start
Yeah.
getting defensive and feel as if I had to defend my entire existence. And that was
Yeah.
because, again, from my childhood of being raised in a domestic violence upbringing, you were
Yeah.
always on the defensive. You're always,
Absolutely.
defend, defend, defend.
Hyper
And
vigilant.
so,
Yep.
yeah, and so I found that I brought that trait with me into the workplace.
Yep.
And then I realized that through a little bit of self awareness and self reflection that I was getting quite defensive. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do to help me learn in this situation? What
Yeah.
tools do I need? What skills do I need? So I decided to get educated on communication skills
Mm,
and body language, but
mhm.
not just who I was speaking to, but about me. What's my body language
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
like?
What am I
How
projecting?
am I actually listening to the real conversation, or am I just reacting to what the first word that I hear? And so at first it became all about, well, the two ears and the one mouth. So use it in that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
listen more, talk less. Yeah. And if you feel that you're about to react, bite your tongue. Just and let them finish the sentence because you may have made, in my instance, you may have made up a story in the first few words without actually hearing the
Yeah.
entire sentence.
Yeah.
So let them finish the sentence and then you'll have the full context and
Mm.
then you can respond. So I started to read all of these different books about communication styles, about how the different words that different personalities use, because different personalities or different personality types, for instance, have specific words that they like to use. So if you are more empathic, for instance, you're going to use a lot of feeling words. If
Hmm.
you're more analytical, you're going to use a lot more thinking words.
Okay.
So and that helps you pick up on the type of individual that you're speaking to
That
as
you're
well.
dealing with.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, because sometimes the communication is going wrong, not because you can't communicate, but you're not speaking the same language, even though you're both speaking English.
Yeah.
They're coming from an analytical perspective. You're coming from an emotional perspective because that's your style.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you've got to go, okay, I'm going to start speaking their language back to them. So I'm going to become mindful of the words that I'm
Mm.
saying back to them.
Mhm.
And if I start speaking more analytical, like thinking words, they're going to understand me better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
And
mirror
so
there.
so I
Yeah.
started to become very, very, like really starting to listen. So at first it was about hearing me and understanding my communication style and
Mm.
understanding, don't react, don't get defensive, sit,
Mhm.
listen, hear the whole conversation,
Yep.
hear the words that aren't being spoken. So
Yeah.
that's the body language and what's actually happening, the projection. And then I went, okay, well, now that I know this about me, now I'm going to start understanding all the different languages. So when I'm
Yep.
in a room, in the first couple of minutes, I can pick up straight away what style they are, and
Who's doing what?
I can
Yep.
respond back to them in their style. And
Mm.
when I started practicing that and started experimenting that, because the corporate world was a fabulous place for that
Oh, I'm sure.
experimentation, um, my communication skills went through the roof.
Yeah.
And then I became known for being a really, really good relationship builder and communicator.
Ah, that's
And
interesting. So that's what you were doing.
and that's one of my
Mm.
core strengths now. And it was
Mhm.
something earlier on that was a bit of a weakness that I turned into a strength
Yep.
through self-awareness, self-reflection, and going, maybe I am actually becoming a bit too defensive and things too early. Maybe I'm not listening to
Mm.
the full conversation here. And
Gosh,
why is this happening? What's
that's
playing out
that's a very
here?
humble place to come from because and that just goes to show the power of the self-awareness because you literally decoded what was going on, what was being a block. And then that's I think this is a part of it that people don't really realize is that yes, it's a bit of work. Yes, it can make you feel uncomfortable, but the rewards are that you then can incredibly increase your skills, and that
Yes.
has a knock-on effect in your entire life. I like to say now that the self-discovery method that has been developed essentially through this process makes your, I suppose, your internal world and your own internal understanding of yourself, that becomes your compass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's, if you imagine, you sort of, I guess, if there were a diagram, there's you and there's all the different areas of your life. And when you get this lined up and you calibrate this compass correctly, all of these areas of your life will improve because it's the one thing that influences everything. Now,
Everything.
I'm not saying
Absolutely.
it's the magic golden ticket or the magic bullet, because there's always going to be external situations and things that influence whatever you're doing, and you can't make things happen exactly how you want all the
Yep.
time. But you will weather those storms far more successfully and far more calmly than you ever did before.
Yeah. And when you build those skills, and as I said, when you look at it and you go, well, okay, what skills do I need here because I've got this pattern going on, and
Yeah.
what do I need to build to overcome that? And you start to build that. Then what you're actually doing over time is creating a toolbox of
Yeah.
all these amazing skills and tools that you can grab out at any given
Mm,
moment, depending on what's actually going on in your life. So it means you've actually got the tools to support you when you
mm,
are,
mm.
say, in a situation that is out of your control totally. You can't control it on any level, but you've got the tools to help you navigate it.
Yeah.
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 And because you've done all the work on self, because you actually really understand you know, "Oh, okay, if I get really pushed in this area, I know that I'm going to react like that. So what do I need to do before that even happens
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
actually set myself up that
Yeah.
that's not going to happen? Or if it does
Yeah.
happen, what's the tool that's going to help pull me out of that really, really quickly so I don't spiral too much?"
Yeah. You
So
do end up being like that.
yeah. So the self awareness is what helps you create that through self reflection, because the self reflection gets you, like, one of the things that I used to do, like, if, as I said, when I got to that point of understanding about that communication, that I want to go and learn about communication styles and understand people better and
Yeah.
that type of thing. It started off with me, yes, the self awareness of, as I said, gee, I'm reacting here and I'm getting very defensive. But that happened because I started a process at night time of reflecting on my day and
Yeah.
looking back in my day and going, okay, this event over here happened, made me feel a
Mm,
bit uncomfortable.
mm.
Why did it make me feel uncomfortable? And if I was able to redo that over again, what would I do differently?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And it was me going through that process that I came to that realization of going, oh, you need to build some skills in this area. So again, it wasn't a self-criticism of you're fucking hopeless as a communicator.
Oh, God.
It was
This is just who you
I
are
want
and
to,
you'll never
yeah,
change.
correct. It
Mhm.
was I want to improve this.
Yeah.
How can I do that? Okay, let's go build this skill. And so it's just like building a skill for a job. You don't look at it when a new person starts and they've never done the role before and go, you're a fucking idiot because you don't know what you're doing. You look at them and you go, how can I help you? How can I guide you?
Mm.
What what skills do we need to teach you? What courses do we
Yeah.
need to put you on
Yeah.
in order to develop those skills? And
Yeah.
we know that it's going to take them 6 to 12 months, depending on the role, to actually, get to a point of being
Right.
decent at it.
Yeah. Decently
Yeah.
competent. Yeah. Yeah. In a good
But we
workplace.
don't, yeah, in a good workplace, but we don't
Mm.
give them a hard time about it up front when they're learning, when they're just starting out. Yeah. We guide them.
Well,
It's like an
we invite
apprentice.
reflection and, yeah, how
Yeah.
could you have improved that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like an apprentice, when you take on an apprentice, they're exactly that. They're an apprentice. You're the master. You're
Yeah.
training them in the skills that they need. They're getting the qualifications, everything like that. And then one day they will gain the qualifications and then become a master in the field and take on an apprentice.
Mm.
Same sort of thing. So you've got to look at it from that perspective with yourself, that
Yep.
you're treating yourself like an apprentice when it
Yeah.
comes to understanding you
Yes,
until
that's a
you
really
have
good attitude.
mastered until
Mm.
you've mastered that particular area.
That's actually a really nice way to look at it because that automatically makes you be kind to yourself because that's the other
Mhm.
part of this. You must be kind to yourself. And whilst I think, I think a lot of people avoid this process because of the initial sort of shock. I know sometimes I don't want to go and get my bloods done at the doctor's because I'm a bit nervous about it. 9 times out of 10, it comes back, it's fine, but you're getting older, you never know.
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing. And once you get past that, And then you start empowering yourself and going, oh, and the changes that you make can be quite small and they can have quite a deep impact. Because again, like you pointed out, that patterns are just working away subtly in the background. Well, changes can do the same thing. They have the same power. Recently, I had a person that I've been friends with for many years, but I recognize that they always come to me when they're in crisis. And they always ask me out of the blue. I never really talk to them much, but they always come to me when there's a crisis and go, oh my God, this has happened and I need your advice. And in the past, I would always assist because I kind of felt a sense of duty, I suppose, out of
Yeah.
friendship. And I also felt compassion for them. But this time, since doing this work, I just went, I'm sorry. I understand that you're having a hard time, but you always come to me when you're in crisis, and I can't. This is what I do for a living. I can't go giving away hours of my time and free counselling anymore because it's not very fair on me. And I can't really do that. And I set the boundary in a really kindly way, and they apologised and recognised that actually they were doing the wrong thing. Now that's something that I would never have done in the past. In the
Yeah.
past, I would have gone, oh, I suppose I probably just have to keep doing this because this is the roles that we're in now. But
The
but
role of
now
the
not anymore.
relationship. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
anymore, because that's not fair. So or I would have gone, "Oh, look, I'm not talking to you anymore. I've had enough," and blanked that person. But now I'm just like, I don't accept that in this relationship. We can continue having a relationship, but it needs to be in a healthier pattern.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. You've got to understand those old patterns that are running and why they're running. You don't necessarily have to delve back into the history of them, but just
Yeah.
recognize them. And that's exactly what you did there. You kind of went, oh, okay, I recognize the pattern of this person, but I
Yep.
also recognize my old
My
pattern
pattern.
coming out.
Yep.
And I'm going, well, okay, well, I can't change their pattern,
No.
but I can change my pattern by creating a different response here. And for you, it was setting a boundary and going, okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
set a boundary in this
Yeah.
instance. And how did
It's
you
very
feel about
interesting.
it? I mean, how did you feel about that afterwards? About setting that boundary and going, okay, no, this is no longer the type of relationship I want.
I felt really good. I felt like I'd honored myself, which was a really nice feeling. But I also was proud of myself because I had done it in a way that was reasonable, grounded. I didn't react. I felt it in my chest. I went, I'm really uncomfortable doing what she wants me to do, and I'm not going to do it. Then I took a moment and I went, I'm going to respond in a way that clearly sets a boundary, but also doesn't make her feel bad. I'm going to also give her
Yeah.
compassion because she's in crisis, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to pour myself out on people because I need that for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did that. And then she immediately backtracked and apologized, which I thought was quite a mature response on her behalf. And now I've just left it. And now I don't, now it's kind of gone. You know how if you have a conflict with someone, it sort of sits away
It's
in the
always
back of your
there.
mind and it
Yeah.
takes up space and it's exhausting.
Mm.
Or if you let somebody walk all over you, again, it's the same thing. It takes up mental space. It sort of puts that burden on your back and it's sitting there. It's exhausting. It takes away part of your energy. That didn't happen in this instance. I sustained myself. I protected myself. I also was kind. Done. Finished. Move on.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
I love that because the recognizing of that old pattern and kind of going, no, I don't want to play that game anymore. And regardless of whether it was that person or that, because I also look at it and go, that person's there to teach you that lesson
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And whether you realize it or not. So the whole concept is going, okay, they're playing their role perfectly. Now it's for you to recognize the role that you want to play moving forward. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's so important to understand that old patterns are just things that you've become familiar with. They're not necessarily,
Or
and
bad.
as you said,
Yeah.
it's not good or bad. It's stuff that in some instances you've developed out of protection. So, because as I said, if I go back to me becoming defensive in early conversations, it was pure
Yep.
protection from when I
Yep.
was a child.
Yep.
And that it just kept playing out when I no longer needed that level of protection anymore.
Mine
Not
came from
everybody was a
childhood
threat.
too. Same
Yeah.
with you. Mine came from my behavior around these kind, and I've ended a few friendships through this process. My behavior around this is I was always the adult in the room as a child. To be
Yep.
safe, I had to be, for my mother, had to be her counselor because she was always falling
Yeah.
apart. So to keep everything going, I always had to look after her. So then I formulated lots of female friendships with very needy women who used me as their counselor, and that made me that wasn't at all what the friendship should have been or what I was, and it was
Yeah.
very one-sided, and then I would feel disrespect over time. But the truth of the matter is that that was what I needed to do to, at the time, to give me that sense of familiarity and make me feel comfortable, because that was the pattern I was in. Now I've recognized that those relationships don't make me feel comfortable anymore, because I've recognized that they're actually ultimately going nowhere, and
Mm.
I'm not going to pour myself out on those anymore. It doesn't mean that the people are bad people, just means that the relationship's probably not sustainable unless they want to change too.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And you won't know whether they do or don't. Yeah. The only person you can change is yourself. You can't
yeah,
force change upon others unless they're open to it, unless they're coming to you and saying, "Yeah, I need some advice on how I can do better here because I'm seeing a pattern and I just don't know where to go." It's a different thing
different
to
story.
going, yeah, it's a different thing to going, "No, I'm going to keep taking, taking, taking." You
I'm not
can't
doing that
change
anymore.
that. You can't, well, it's that whole thing of you are responsible for you, you're not responsible for other people's behavior.
That's
So,
right.
what can you change within your own behavior to change that outcome of that particular situation or relationship? And you did exactly that by setting a boundary.
And there's
And
more
in her
respect. I think it,
instance,
hey,
I said in her instance, she respected your boundary and went,
yeah, yeah.
you're right. Absolutely.
Which was really
Yeah.
nice, which was really
Mm.
nice. And I have had another conversation with another friend who had thought that I'd done something that I didn't. And I said, no, that's not correct. They've gone away, thought about it, and come back and said, oh, okay, yeah, I realize you're right, actually. I'm sorry. And so then because I've responded in a way that was set the boundary clearly but compassionate, it doesn't close the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is a
Yeah.
measured response. Whereas in the past, I mean, and I have ended some friendships because I know that they're no good, but in the past, I might have gone off half cocked or just gone, right, that's it, I've had enough, because I've let the boundary crossing go on for too long, and
Yeah.
then I've reached a level where I've lost respect and I've had enough and the
Yeah. And then
trust
you
is
go, that's it,
broken.
it's over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's pattern recognition. That's
It is.
understanding what you're doing, and that's a powerful process. And it can be, yeah. And I think the more you do this stuff, the more confident you become in yourself, the more accepting you become of yourself. So initially, you might start off going, "Oh God, cringe," but now I'm at that place where I go, "Okay, I own that. I accept that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I think for me, because I've been on this path for such a long time, like it's been over 30 years that I've started doing self
Yeah,
awareness and the inward looking. In fact, the inward looking, it was happening from a child, but
yeah,
it's a thing that I've always done. But when I talk about that self reflection and really becoming self aware, it's probably been about 30 years. I've been
mm,
doing those types of activities and learning to, what can I do differently here? What skill do I need to develop? How can I learn more about me? Because that was what it was at first. I was so driven about understanding me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
really wanted to understand who I was and to really start to trust myself and to trust my decisions
yeah.
and to like who I was as a person. Not that I was a horrible person,
No,
but
no, no.
I just didn't like me.
Mm,
Like
mm,
I think so many women, men are probably the same, I'm not sure, but there's so
I don't
many
think so as
women,
much.
we don't like how we look. We're always self-criticizing. We're always telling ourselves we're not enough. And I know, again, as I said, if I go back to my childhood, there was self-worth issues.
Oh
There was,
God.
I'm not lovable. There was all different
Not
types of
skinny.
things
I wasn't
playing out.
skinny. I was never a
Yeah.
skinny girl. Mm.
I mean, well, the one thing for me was I was athletic. I was always athletic. So I kind of went, yeah, I'm pretty fit and I know I'm pretty
You know
fit.
what, I was too, but when I was young, I look back on photos of me and I was actually really lean and super fit,
Yeah.
but the whole time in my head, I thought I was fat, and everyone told me I was
Ah,
fat.
there you
Interesting.
go. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So where I'm going with that is I've gotten to a stage now. I mean, I'm in my mid 50s now, and I've gotten to a stage that I'm like, I really love who I am. And
Yeah.
it's taken a really long time to
Yes.
get there, a really long time. And that's been continuous work. And I still don't look at it and go, the work is done,
No,
because
no,
there's
no.
always new things to learn about self. There's always
Yeah.
deeper things to go into and a deeper understanding of who I am at the core. And so that takes me back to why we developed the Art of Beautiful Thinking self-relationship method, because it really is about, that's your blueprint. Your blueprint
Yeah.
in life
Yeah.
is that relationship you have with self. And the authentic life blueprint the one which is our intro level, is the beginning of that, which is what we're talking about here. We're going through each week. We're going to go through one of the modules and discuss.
Mm.
That's why this has been created, because I've been on this path for such a long time that I understand the different mechanisms. I
Yeah.
understand the tools that really worked well for me
Mm.
that I still use today,
Yeah.
even though they were the first tools that I got into, and they're the ones that are part of the Authentic Life Blueprint, because
Yeah.
that's our beginner program. And all of those tools are in there, but they're still tools I use. So it's not like you go, well, that was a beginner's tool and I'm never going to use that again.
Oh, no.
It's just
And yeah.
a really good entry level to help you
Mm.
understand self and to continue to work on self. And
Mm.
so the Authentic Life Blueprint is something that you can go back to time and time and time again
I still do it.
to help
I'm
go
still
deeper
doing it.
and
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, or to go, hang on, I need a refresh on that. I need a
Yeah.
refresh on that.
Yeah.
Because you can feel when you're changing and you're growing. You can feel it. You show up differently. And people can't really put their finger on it, but they know, oh, okay. Looking sort of more I bumped into one of the girls I used to work with. I haven't seen her in a year. And I said, "Oh, how you going?" Yeah, she goes, "Great." And I said, "Yeah, I'm great. You know, things are good." She goes, you look really good. You look different." And I was like, "Yeah, oh, thanks." You know, and I think it's just I'm more myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something that doing years, because you turned inwards from a young age because you needed the answers. I bought the story that there was something wrong with me as a kid. And I suspect I'm probably neurodivergent, as I've mentioned before, going to go through all the testing. In what I internalized was there was something wrong with me. And so then I thought, well, don't trust what's going on in here because I'm broken. There's something wrong. So I'll go outside. And then as an adult, I went to psychologists and all the rest of it because I wanted to figure out what was going on with me. And I learned
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy, which is great to an extent. And I did trauma counseling after I lost my daughter, which was great to an extent. But none of it really unlocks the whole truth, which is, and this is not coming from a narcissistic or an arrogant mindset, because I know in Australia we're very, oh God, you love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I do actually now, which was the key all along, because I didn't. But so if people say things to you like, oh, you really love yourself, what's wrong with that? We really need to have a shift in culture around this. We need to learn to love ourselves so that we can understand ourselves, even when we know that we're not perfect and we're not flawless. But that self-acceptance, this is the process that you use to get there. And mastering
And it's
that.
not vanity. It's not
It's not
vanity. That's
vanity
the
and
thing.
it's not narcissism, you know, and there
Yeah.
is a lot of narcissism online
Oh.
about just adoring yourself. It's going, okay, well, I've got flaws, but I still love myself anyway.
Mm.
And that's fine. And I'm never going to be a perfect supermodel. Those days are over, baby.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm fine with that. You know, I want to be, and your focus shifts. You want to be healthy. You want to be
Yeah.
happy. Mm.
Yeah. And I think that was my driving force all along, because, again, if we reflect, as you said, in your childhood, you took on the story
Yeah, I
of
had no choice.
what people,
My childhood was
what
so
people are
broken.
telling you.
Yeah.
I took on some of the story, but
Yeah.
not all of the story, because I
Yeah.
still came out of it with wounds that I needed to heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing was all I wanted was to be happy and to be loved.
Yeah.
That's all I
Funny.
wanted.
It's all children
And
really want. Yes.
yeah. And so throughout my life, when I talked about going in and sort of saying I was trying to find my truth, it was because I was just kind of going, I just want to be loved. I just want to be happy. And I realized throughout that process that the real love was going to come from self-love.
That can
And
never
then,
be taken away from you. It can never
no,
be denied. It's yours.
exactly.
And
And you
doesn't matter
feel,
what happens.
and when you have that self-love, you feel
Mm.
safe, you feel
Mm.
secure. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you're able to attract love in your life because you actually have self-love.
Yeah.
And you're able to provide a good relationship because you're being
Yes.
true to self.
And
So you
similarly,
understand, you understand there's a give and take,
yeah,
but you're not trying to mask
or
yourself in
dominate
a relationship
or
or dominate.
whatever.
Yeah.
You're there
Yeah.
out of equality and genuine authenticity. And similarly, it will repel people who
Yeah.
don't like that you're so grounded and so sort of in yourself. People
Mm.
that are there to control or have nefarious reasons to be around you, they won't come near you because
Yeah.
they'll go, nah, she's not my flavor.
And that's because, as I said, it goes back to your trusting yourself. And similar to what you were talking about before, you honored yourself in a situation. And you'll start to do that more and more. And you'll start to live from that truth from within inside of you.
Yep.
And you'll start to shape your choices in life
Yes.
based on
Yep.
that truth.
Yep.
So your life starts to look very different. And I think
Yeah.
as we get older as well, because, you're in your early 50s, I'm in my mid 50s, as you get older, I think you do start to go, well, I don't want the shit in my life anymore.
Oh,
So you start to
absolutely.
get rid of stuff from your life.
Estrogen, the loss of estrogen brings
It
incredible
does that.
clarity.
It does that. But when you add to that you've developed a good relationship with self, it's almost like, they talk about the wise old woman. It's like you've fallen into that phase in your life and
Yeah.
you're using that wisdom
Yep.
to actually improve your life and improve those around you.
We're in the crone phase.
Exactly, the crone phase of our life. And you're no longer seeking approval. There's no need to seek
No.
approval.
Not remotely interested in approval. Keen for reciprocal, good relationships with people where there's
Yep.
give and take and you're both learning and growing. Great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Robust debates or challenges to thinking so I can learn something. Love it. Approval, don't care.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do believe that when you have that inner relationship, and I refer to that inner relationship as connecting to your authentic self,
Yes.
and when you start to get that self-awareness around
Yep.
your authentic self, then yeah, you change the conditions of your life. You start to totally change it because you understand you at the core, not just on a surface level, but
Absolutely.
at the core.
And I think this is an absolute universal truth. This is not something that I've made up. This is just something that is known. 100%. Life is going to change. One thing that is absolutely guaranteed in your life is that it's going to change. You're going to have things happen around you that you've got no control over. There's just going to be continuous change in your life and you're going to have to make decisions and you're going to have to adapt. So regardless of whether you want to do the internal work or not, you're by far better off doing the internal work so that when those decisions and those changes come up, you are already aware of what your aligned self wants you to do. So you're going to make changes. You're going to have to do things anyway. You may as well figure out who you are and how that aligns with you so that the choices that you make can be ones that work for you rather than work against you.
Well, they're going to be on your truth, aren't they? They're going
Yeah.
to be about your truth
Yeah.
and not out of fear or confusion. So, yeah.
And they're going to follow your plan that works for you. And you're less
Absolutely.
likely to end up in a situation that you're unhappy with. Or if you do,
Mm-hmm.
you can go, this isn't working.
Yeah,
Yeah, nah.
totally.
Yeah, nah, as we say in
Yeah,
Australia.
nah.
Yeah, nah.
Australia. Yeah, nah. Yeah, nah. Which actually means yeah or nah.
I think yeah, nah means nah.
Nah.
Nah, yeah means yeah.
It depends on the
Australians.
context, doesn't it? It totally
Doesn't
depends
it?
on the
And
context.
you've got to be Australian to know it.
And you've got to
haven't
be
you? Oh,
Australian to
God.
know it. So you go, yeah, nah, which means yeah, or yeah, nah, which means no. Yeah.
Nah, yeah means probably.
Yeah, nah, yeah.
Oh
Or,
dear.
yeah, nah, yeah. Sorry.
But that's,
anyway,
that's
we
a good
digress.
way. How am I feeling about it? How am I feeling about it?
Yeah.
Are you feeling yeah, nah or nah, yeah? Like, you
Yeah,
need to know.
yeah.
Anyway. But yes,
Aussies.
so sorry. The self-relationship method. Self-awareness is how you
So we
begin
can
to
laugh at ourselves.
I know. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. But that's what you get to when you get to this stage, isn't it? You can hear the difference between your authentic self and your conditioned self. So you can have a
Yeah.
laugh and you can enjoy life because you know.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, is when we talk about the authentic self and the conditioned self, it's actually noticing the difference between judging and non-judgment. And that's one thing, I said it earlier on, that people get confused with self-criticism or even judgment as a decision. I'm
Oh,
judging
God.
myself, so therefore that has
Yeah.
to be decision.
Yeah.
Like I'm terrible at setting boundaries, so I'm never going to set boundaries. Or I always ruin things. They're all judgmental things.
Yeah.
I should have done this by now, the should have,
Mm,
could have, would have, that type
mhm,
of thing.
mhm.
And I'm weak if I don't follow through with this. Those types
Mm,
of things. They're all real
yeah,
judgment types of things. And it's noticing when you're doing that, when you are creating self-judgment,
yeah,
really
yeah.
noticing it.
So you switch it
And
out, you reframe it.
yeah,
You
you
reframe it. So,
reframe it.
yeah, instead of
Yeah.
"I'm terrible at boundaries," you go, "Ooh, I said yes when I wanted to say no. Why did I do that?
Hmm, hmm,
Hmm,
hmm.
okay.
Or rather than saying I'm terrible at setting boundaries, is why don't I set boundaries? Ask yourself the question, why don't I set
Why don't I
boundaries?
set
Because
boundaries?"
questions are actually powerful because
Yeah.
then you'll find the answer.
I'm too
You'll
sensitive.
find the answer.
Am I too sensitive, or have I popped myself in a position where I'm in friendships and relationships and engaging with people who I haven't shown my authentic self to, and therefore the relationships I have with everybody are not satisfying to me because they're not
Mm,
right for me.
mm. And I'm too sensitive as well. Like, so why am I sensitive? It could also be because you're an empath. You have a lot of empathy for people. Is that a bad thing? No.
No.
It's just recognizing where you're using it for the wrong reasons or you're being taken advantage of for that reason. So, yeah. It's, and that's the thing. So it's understanding self. So the questions you ask yourself will either bring you down or pull you up. And it's really important that you ask yourself powerful questions.
Well, this is where abuse comes in, isn't it? Like this actually makes you immune to emotional, well, maybe not immune, but it makes you go, oh, I can see straight through that. So once you learn this self-discovery method, you can see straight away when people are trying to manipulate you or gaslight you, because that's the kind of language they'll use. Oh, you're terrible at boundaries. Oh, you always ruin things. And you can reframe that in your own head and then go back to them and say, I'm not sure that that landed the way you wanted it to, because the way
Mm.
I see it is like this. What do you think? And they'll be gobsmacked and go, oh, and that will send the message, oh, she's actually quite hard to manipulate.
Yeah.
Okay, I might
Yeah.
not do that again because I'm going out on a limb. She's not easy. She's not vulnerable. It's not easy to push her around. So these are low conflict ways of sort of establishing boundaries gently back again that perhaps I've certainly not used recently in the last few years in the workplace because I'm far too trusting and bloody keen to help all the time. Something that I've always done. I just thought, oh well, I can see these people are hostile because I'm from another country called Australia. So
The
which is what
mainland.
it's like. It's what it's like when you move to Tasmania. So I'm from another country. I'm a dirty mainlander. So I thought, well, I'll just work extra hard and bend over backwards and take on more work and try to be even better at my job. Bam, bow. No, what I should have done is just gone, no, I'm not really. No, I can't do that, unfortunately. Or, explain to me what you want me to drop as a priority so that I can do that work.
Yeah.
Taking that sort of more stable approach. And then when I think you go through these processes and notice these things that you're saying about yourself, when you notice negative self talk and you change that, you will notice negative talk back to you. And then you can
Yeah.
reframe and push that back because that becomes a natural response. That's the natural thing that you do next.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's that, and that's again, that's that awareness because you start creating the awareness and then you're able to create choice with that as well. So when, as
exactly.
you said, when you recognize the self-talk and
Mm,
how you are actually talking to yourself negatively and the questions that you're asking yourself are disempowering questions, they're not empowering questions. And when you start to change that internal dialogue,
yeah.
as you said, you recognize when other people are talking to you or belittling you or gaslighting you, and you can pick up on it really quite quickly.
Mm,
And
mm,
and then you can actually it's not stand your ground by getting, as I said, defensive or getting into an argument, but it's standing your ground with being in your power and going,
mm.
no, I don't agree with you.
Not how I
And
would look at it.
if
Mm.
you do agree with them on some level, you say, "Can you explain that?" So
Yeah.
I can then make the change that I need to make
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you yelling at me or you belittling me is not actually assisting me to
No.
make the change. So it's putting it back on them to say, "Okay, so you want me to act differently in this particular
Mm.
scenario. How would you like me to act and why?"
But I
And
think
usually that
most,
that catches them off as well because they're not looking
yeah.
for that. They're looking for a reaction from you. Yeah.
And most people, I think, have journeyed inward so little because we're not taught to do this. This is not something that we're taught to do in our culture at all. That for the most part, when people they're not actually making these statements. as a way to help you improve or do anything differently. It's a form of dominance and control when
Yeah.
they're having a jab, right? When people
Usually,
make these
9
kind of
times out of
statements.
10, usually.
Most of the
Yeah.
time, unless they're very unskilled and don't realize,
Yeah.
but that's unusual. But yeah, if they're having a jab, and most people will immediately take that on board, internalize it, and melt into a puddle and be horrified and feel awful. You know, their face will turn bright red. They'll be like, oh my God, this is awful, feeling terribly judged. And immediately they'll take that judgment into themselves and go, oh God. But actually, when you learn this method, because you know who you are, the minute someone tries to tell you what you're thinking, who you are, how you're going about things, you know that's incorrect.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
even upset about it. You're just like, no,
Well, see,
that's not right.
what I do, I tend to ask myself, as I said, questions. So if I'm actually in a situation where someone is saying something to me and it's taken me a bit aback, it's quite quickly. I'll actually quickly ask myself, and I go, "Is this true?"
Mm, mm,
And then I go, "Yay or nay,"
yep,
because you know your truth. You really
yeah,
know if you are doing the wrong or right, or if you're behaving in a particular manner. You know that.
yes, yes,
So you can say, okay, is this true? And you
mm,
ask yourself
mm,
that. If it's no, then you go, all right, let them know that
mm,
you don't have to say to them, oh, this isn't true. It's just you go, well, I'm not taking that on board. No.
yeah,
The other
actually,
thing to
yeah,
ask, the other thing is this mine? Or are they just throwing their baggage onto me, like most
yeah,
people do,
yep.
because they've got their own crap? Most people are reacting in the world.
And
They're
it's
not
their stuff.
responding,
It's
and
their
it's
stuff
their
that
stuff.
they're projecting
Exactly.
it onto you.
So you've got to look at it and go, is this mine or is it somebody else's? You know, is it their stuff? Or is this old
I'll give an
patterning,
example. I
you
can give
know?
an example of that. I was having friends. We were alternating dinners backwards and forwards, having each other over for dinner on once a week or once a fortnight. And when my friends came over, and they were kind of new people that I was meeting. When they came over to my place, I'd go all out and do a beautiful meal for them on really something special, because that's how I show my love, is by, if you're coming to my house, I'm going to cook you something really nice.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's your
not
love
just going to,
language.
yeah, it's a love language. And I'll make it for you on my nice cutlery, with my nice cutlery and my nice crockery, because I'll make you feel good, because I want for you to feel good about that. One of them took it that I was competing. One of them actually pointed out that my cutlery was really expensive. And I was like, so? But they took offense,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
felt that I was competing. Now, they didn't have a conversation with me about that. They just became more and more kind of reserved each week, and then started throwing out random comments. And I was completely flabbergasted, because I was not at all coming from that space. I was coming
Yeah.
from a place of, oh, I just want you guys to have the best time when you come here. And that
Yeah.
was that person making that. And I was sort of shocked. And then I looked back and thought about it more, and I thought, oh, okay, that's not me. That's their own feelings of lack, of insecurity, of that they can't keep up, whatever it is. But whatever's going on with them, I don't know. But that's them. But in the
Mm.
past, I would have taken that on as something that I'd done wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I hear you.
mm,
I've had similar things, not around food, because I love cooking as well, etc. But from a sport perspective, I've always been very good at sport, very
mm.
athletic, very,
Yep,
even with dance, all different types of things, anything very physical.
you've always
I've
really
got
enjoyed
high
that.
physical intelligence, yeah.
Mm, mm.
And so and even intellectually, I like educating myself through self-knowledge and all those types of
Yep.
things. And so I can have good conversations, and I can sometimes get not robust in the point of argumentative, but I like to get really philosophical and get deep into things.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when I look at, as I said, when I look at the physical activities, I like to do my best.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I've had people, not a lot, but I've occasionally had people say to me, "Oh, you're very competitive." And I look, and I'm really surprised when people say that to me, because I'm probably the least competitive person.
You're one of the most
I
mentoring, nurturing people I know. But anyway, that's all right.
and I'm like, "Oh, interesting," because the only person that I'm ever in competition with is myself.
I
And that
think
is
you have
why,
high levels of standards. Your standards of excellence
yes, I've
behind
got
you
very
drive
high.
yourself. Yes.
Correct, correct.
Yes.
And that's basically what it is. And I'm trying to strive to my standards, because
Yeah.
I know that I can do well in that thing. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
strive for it. And then people will mistake that for competition. And I'm like, I'm not competing with you. If you're competing with
Yeah.
me, that's on you. But I'm
Yeah.
not competing with you. I'm only competing with me. And I've said that to them on numerous occasions. Like when people have said that to me, I've said that to them like that's been my
And what do they
response. Sorry.
say? What's their
And
response?
they're usually a bit like, "Oh." It's like,
Mm.
"Yeah, you doing you is not even in my head, okay? I'm not
Yeah.
even looking at you going, 'I need to beat you.' That's not it. That
No.
hasn't even crossed my
Don't
mind.
care. Yeah, you
I'm
live
just
your life.
going, 'What do
Mhm.
I need to do here?' And I'm just going
Exactly.
for it." And that's
Yeah.
the thing. And it's not that I'm walking over the top of them or pushing them out of the way. I'm just focused on me doing my
Yeah.
best. And so it's interesting how some people can be threatened by you doing your best, and then they will go, "Oh, you're trying to compete with me." It's like, "No,
No.
I'm actually not."
That's not how I think. It's got
Yeah.
and that has absolutely nothing to do with you. You've
No.
triggered
And
something in
that's
them.
exactly, and that's
Yeah.
that part of being able to pause and go, "Well, actually, no,
Mm.
I'm not gonna take that on because I'm actually not competitive.
No.
I just I don't care who wins or loses here. I really don't. I just wanna do my best." And
In
as I
fact,
said,
I
the
would
only
argue that you're probably that person who would be really happy to lend a hand and help.
yeah,
If I
and I've
came to
done
if
that.
I needed
I've done
help, I'd
that.
be like, "Eva,"
Yeah,
I would come to you and ask because I know you would do it. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And so back in the day, I would have internalized that and gone, "Oh God, how do I
yes,
dim my light a little bit
yes,
to try and stop upsetting people?" But you fucking can't.
no,
You
you
can't stop
can't.
upsetting people.
Yeah,
That's their shit, you know?
exactly,
They need to deal with
exactly.
their shit. But you
And
can't
that
say, "Oh, you need to deal with your shit." You can't as much as you'd
yeah,
like
but
to.
that goes back to them not being self-aware. So they're lacking their own self-awareness in this and looking at it going, "You're a threat. You're
Yeah,
competing with me.
gotta
It's
get
you,
rid of
it's you,
you.
it's you."
Yep.
When it's like, well, actually, have you taken a step back to go, actually, you're thinking you're in a competition when I'm not even thinking about the
I'm
competition.
unfortunately
You
mirroring
know?
your worst aspect back to yourself,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
giving you something to think about purely from my existence, so I'm not gonna apologize for that. But it
Yeah.
happens so commonly. It happens to me a lot.
Does.
I find that too. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's recognizing that when someone says something to you, does it feel off? And if it feels off, then you don't have to take it. You don't have to, and I
Yeah.
don't mean take it by going, "Oh, I'm going to give it back." What I'm saying is you don't have to take it on and hold on to it.
No, and you can
You've got a
always say to
choice.
people, great line, especially in the workplace, is to say, "Oh, yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. I'm not sure that I agree with it, but if you'd like to explain more to me how you came to that conclusion, I'd love to hear it." And
Yeah,
then they've got to
yeah.
actually stop and consider where they got their information from. And because a lot of people don't, they'll open their mouth and say something, throw something out there, make an accusation based on their feelings. And they haven't even considered where that information has come from.
Mm,
The big
exactly.
mistake that I used to engage in would be I'd go, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I've made you feel that way."
Yeah, I don't apologize for other
No,
people how they
no.
feel unless I know that I've done something, then I go,
Unless I've
that again,
deliberately
that goes
or have
back to
shown
going,
malicious intent. Yeah,
whether you've done right or wrong. And if
yeah,
I know that I've done wrong, I will apologize. Or if I kind of go, "Oh shit, I didn't realize my words had actually
yeah. I've
hurt you or
misspoken or
offended
something.
you.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry for that."
Mm.
So self-awareness works on both things because it comes back to honesty, comes
Mhm.
back to having that integrity within self to
Mm.
know, are you being honest or are you not? And when you are being truly honest with yourself, you're going to be truly honest with those around you. And so
Yeah, but that
that's
doesn't always land well with people
no,
who
it
aren't being
doesn't.
honest with you.
Yeah, true. Another thing too that with self-awareness, your body plays a big role as well in
Yes, yes.
self-awareness. And that comes back to listening to the body. The body
Mm.
will tell you if it's feeling stressed, if it's uncomfortable in a
Uncomfortable.
situation, if it's nervous, you'll get all of these signs throughout your body. So the first thing through self-awareness is to also listen to the body. What is your
Or if
body
it's,
trying to tell you?
dare I say, ass clenching,
Yeah.
you go, "Ooh, ew,
Ooh.
ooh,
Yeah.
no." Ass
Yeah.
clenchingly bad. We all know what
Yep.
that feels like.
Yep. Shallow breathing when you're fearful, when
Yep.
you go, "Oh my god, yeah, I feel like I'm about to have an anxiety attack," type of thing. Why? Why?
Mm,
Stop.
mm,
Why? What's playing out here? Your body's trying to tell you something. So really listen
mm.
to it.
We're
I mean,
all
it's like
energy.
tension. I
Mm,
know that I will carry a lot of tension in my upper body when I'm stressed.
mm.
And I'll go to my chiro and he's like, "Oh God, you're so tight up there. I can't even move your shoulders." It's like, yep,
Yeah.
yep, because that's where I carry. I carried it all
Same.
up here. And
Trapezius. Yep.
yeah, and so I have to look at myself and go, okay, what am I stressed about? Like, so when I get really tight in the upper body, I go, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Am I not
Yeah. Same.
sleeping well? What's on my mind? That type of thing.
Am I too
And
hard?
yeah,
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
pushing
What am I
too hard?
doing?
So it's reflecting back and kind of going, okay, what's my body trying to tell me here?
And
You know?
that's really important. And a lot of people might poo-poo that because we're talking about energetics in that
Mm.
instance, and they might say you can't always feel how people make you feel, or they make you feel nothing. I just turn up and people are there. Well, have you ever walked into a room where two people have been having an argument?
Hmm.
And you're telling me that then they've just had a massive fight. You walk in and you can't feel that energy. All
Yeah.
humans can feel that energy. We know.
Exactly. We know, exactly right. And again, that's the other thing when you start becoming more aware of self, that relationship with the body also changes because you're
Yes.
able to tune into it more and more.
But
And
it changes in a
yeah,
way, I mean, that doesn't make you, because I know some people are very sensitive to this stuff too, and it can exhaust them. When you get authentic with yourself and you know what's going on and you've done that journey, your relationship with your body improves and you feel things more intensely because you hear it and you understand it. But it
yep,
doesn't knock you for six
yep.
because you're in that place of acceptance. You go, okay, I feel that. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Mm.
And then you know what to do to get yourself away or to make yourself safe or whatever you've got to do to reduce those feelings. So it tends to, I've found, less emotional burnout, less stress.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Yeah.
mm.
It's, I think my body has been one of my biggest teachers.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Same. Same.
Especially with going through cancer, things like that. It's been a huge teacher because it's like, where am I carrying this really deep seated emotion?
Yeah.
And like if I know for me, if I look at again, some people may go, "Oh, you're sounding too woo woo here," but I look at it and I go,
Mm,
emotions have a huge impact on the body, and the things that I was carrying from my childhood into my all the way through my teenage years,
yeah.
having death happen very early in my life as well,
Yeah.
and
Awful
trying to
losses.
navigate that. And then I got cancer, and you go, well, that's
Mm,
because I had so much anger inside of me that it was
mm,
eating away at my body. And
mm,
that's what cancer is, healthy cells turning into bad cells and eating away at the healthy cells. And
mm.
so I go, I know that that cancer came from my emotional state that I'd been carrying around for such a long time and holding on to that. And so my body through that was such a big lesson for me when I went
Yeah,
through that.
yeah. There's definitely that mind-body connection. I know when I lost my daughter, I was in a really bad state of mind. My physical health was also not the best because, my mental health wasn't very good, but it was also I was completely unaware of all this. That was a
Mm.
massive wake-up call for me. Married to the wrong man that I
Hmm.
shouldn't have been with, that I was kind of, in a way, suppressing myself and forcing myself to be with, and I'd entered into the relationship before I really knew who I was.
Yep.
You know, and it was same thing, like you're talking about that mind body connection. The things that I went through, I was like, "What's the cause of this?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we're not really sure.
Yeah.
Why do some
Exactly.
women go through this?" "Oh, well, it's the body rejecting the baby in some ways." And I thought to myself, "My God, I really actually need to have a good look at my whole life, and a lot
Yeah.
of areas in my life were a mess, and actually I was a mess." So
Yeah.
yeah, that really pushed. I'd dabbled in a bit of self help and self awareness, not self help, but self awareness prior, and probably self help, which isn't as good. But
Yeah.
that really set me on the path of going, okay, well, how am I going to live my life moving forwards? Because I think when you do have a massive shake up like that in your life, a near death experience that we've both had, it
Yep.
really makes you stop and do an
And
assessment. And you
yeah,
go, what can I do to avoid this in the future? What power do I have in this situation?
absolutely. And that is exactly what happened to me when I went
Mm,
through it. Is I reflected and went,
yeah.
okay, where did this come? Why did this come? I was 31.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah.
31 with cancer
I
going.
was actually, yeah, 31,
Yeah, yeah.
losing my
There you
daughter.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And nearly my own
going,
life.
yeah,
Mm,
and really, really young to be going through that type of cancer.
horrible. Mm,
And then that, yeah, stepping back and going, okay, again, what do I need to do differently to ensure that this never comes back again? What do I need to change in my life? What lifestyle changes do I need to make? And then also going, what do I need to do to listen to my body and listen to self? So that was when I talk
Yep.
about 30 years ago, that was when I really started the personal growth journey, was from my
Yeah.
cancer. So my cancer was a massive wake-up call for me. Like, it was massive. And it really got me to tune back in. And during the time, I wouldn't have said to you, like when I was going through it, I would not have said to you, oh, this has come from my childhood. I was
No,
too
of
busy
course
going,
not. No.
let's just survive this and get through the other end of this, and so I was purely in survival. What do I need to do to survive and get through this? What do I need to do to get my mind in a state of not stress and anxiety over what's actually happening
Yeah.
to me, but
Yeah.
believing that I will come out the other end of this, that this
Yep.
is just a time that is going to pass. So I was working from that perspective. And it wasn't till probably a good, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years later that I was able to reflect back and go, that came from my childhood.
Because
That
it's
was
so
all the
traumatic.
stuff I was holding on to.
Yeah, and the whole experience was so traumatic for you. It was so
Yeah.
traumatic for me. Yeah, absolutely. But, awareness is so much better it would be so much nicer to go through self-awareness without the jump start from a horrendous health trauma. So much better to do something like the workbook that actually allows you to go through it at
Yes.
your own pace, gently, with, help if needed from us, and doing it in a way that suits you and suits your lifestyle to give you that nice, slow and steady growth, or, the odd arrow to the brain that helps you make changes. Yeah,
Exactly. And the arrow to the brain in our cases back then was our health crisis.
I would not wish it on anyone.
I was going to say, don't wait for a health
No.
crisis. Get to it now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So really, for us, the guide has been all the information that's in the Authentic Life Blueprint. That's been the guide.
Yeah.
That's been the thing that has, as I said, throughout my life, has actually helped me be able to really develop that good relationship with self.
Yep.
And to be able to keep that reflection process happening, have the tools around me that I need to be able to dig deep when I need to dig deep, or to deal with a situation when a situation arises, because
It's a
it'll help me.
protector of burnout too.
It is.
I've found
is.
that it protects me from burnout, because burnout, I think, comes from when you feel as though you're totally out of control. You can't control lots of different situations, or in a workplace, whatever that you hate or whatever is going on, and you just feel as though you've got no choices, no nothing. When you've learnt this method, you've got control over yourself.
You do.
Which ultimately is the only thing you really can control. And then you make choices, and then that just separates you enough that you're not in it. You just feel, you can create that safety in yourself. You can give yourself the capacity to make those informed decisions, which then allows you to move on and change. Or even if you're stuck in a situation that you've done everything you've got every tool in the toolbox, and you've done everything and thrown everything at it, then you're able to sit in that situation and go, okay, this is happening for a reason. I'm not sure what that reason is yet, but I'm going to trust myself, and I'm going to stay with it for the moment until something changes. Because one thing is guaranteed: change. Change will always happen.
Exactly right. So to end this, I would like to actually just give our audience a question to think about, and that is, what keeps repeating in your life that may be asking for your awareness?
Yes.
Not your judgment, but your awareness.
And if you're not sure, get the blueprint, and it'll help you figure
exactly.
it out.
Inside the blueprint, you'll get a lot of different answers and guides and things like that. And the link for that is actually below as well.
Yep.
And again, if you've actually gotten something from today, we would love to hear from you. We would absolutely love to hear what ahas came up for you, or even if you've got some questions for us.
Yeah.
So put those in the comments below as well. And you can also find us on all the social media sites as well. So remember to think beautifully and live brilliantly. Until next time, ciao.
Bye.
We'd like to say a huge thank you to our incredible audience for your continued support. Our mission is to ignite your spark, empowering you to be a beacon of light for others. We'd love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions that you would like answered in future episodes, or just want to share some insights, connect with us on our Facebook community page. If you're looking for additional resources, go to our website. You'll find the link below. And remember, the absolute best way to help us grow is to share this episode with your friends and family, and to subscribe to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. So until next time, think beautifully and live brilliantly.